Thank you for joining the largest humanitarian organization in the world. Today we're going to talk about the wonderful opportunities the American Red Cross can offer to volunteers. Because of your efforts, we can make a difference.
Hi, my name is Carly Fountain and I work with the Volunteer Services team for the American Red Cross of Massachusetts. I am so excited to share our volunteer orientation with you today, and we welcome you to the Red Cross. We hope you learn a lot, and we're just very excited to have you on our team. So thanks for being here.
Let's start today by talking about the mission of the American Red Cross. The American Red Cross prevents and alleviates human suffering in the face of emergencies by mobilizing the power of volunteers and the generosity of donors. Everything that we do as an organization ties back to our mission, and we'd love for you to keep it in mind during your volunteer journey with us. What does our mission mean for our on-the-ground work? Our mission means that we shelter, feed, and provide emotional support to victims of disasters. It means that we supply about 40% of the nation's blood. It means we teach skills that save lives. It means that we provide international humanitarian aid, and we support military members and their families. The Red Cross is a not-for-profit organization that depends on the volunteers and their skills and their effort, the generosity of the American public, and their generous donations to perform our mission. Our Red Cross values provide the foundation for the way we behave and the standards to which we hold ourselves. As an organization, our values mean we are compassionate, we are collaborative, we're creative, credible, and committed. The work of the Red Cross is fueled by the trust of the American people. Without their willingness to donate time, blood, dollars, and leadership, our services could not continue. To maintain that trust and to be the best stewards of donated gifts, we must work by the highest ethical standards. So what does this mean when our volunteers put ethical behaviors into practice? It means we put Red Cross values and policies into practice. We ensure that we tell the truth, and we ensure that we're fair and we respect individuals. At the Red Cross, we have 7 fundamental principles that help us guide our behaviors as an organization. This mural that you see is located in Louisiana, and it shows our 7 principles. They are humanity, meaning the Red Cross is here to meet a person's basic human needs when they need it most. Impartiality, meaning we're here to help anyone and everyone. Neutrality means we do not choose sides. Independence means the Red Cross is not a federal agency. We maintain our own identity separate from the US government. Voluntary service, meaning 95% of our workforce at the American Red Cross is made up of volunteers. Unity, meaning there's only one Red Cross or one Red Crescent society in any one country. It must be open to all, and it must carry on its humanitarian work throughout its territory. Universality, meaning Red Cross societies from all over the world come together as one to restore humanity and to provide relief. All Red Cross societies worldwide share the same responsibility to help people. Because we are part of the Red Cross Global Network, we have 3 emblems that represent Red Cross societies worldwide. When you see these symbols, we'd like for you to understand the strength and unity that is represented on an international level. The cross is the most commonly recognized emblem representing the Red Cross because it is also used as a protection on the battlefield. This emblem is one of the top 5 most recognized symbols in the world. The crescent was created because the cross had a religious connotation. The crescent is used in many Muslim Red Cross societies. The crystal is an alternative to other symbols and is used in countries that want to maintain a religiously neutral presence. It's important to know the history of any organization you're working with, so here's a quick history lesson. Do you recognize this gentleman? This is Henri Dunant. He's the founder of the Red Cross. Henri Dunant was born in Geneva, Switzerland. In 1859, he visited Italy, and he witnessed the Battle of Solferino and the desperate need for medical help for both sides of the war. He gathered groups of nurses and specialists from the local town to provide relief for the wounded soldiers. It didn't matter what side they were fighting for, they just needed help. He later wrote a book called The Memory of Solferino about memories and experiences during the war. In 1863, he founded the International Red Cross. In 1864, the first Geneva Convention was held. Some of the main principles that were determined in the convention are relief to the wounded without any distinction to nationality, and neutrality of medical personnel and establishments. How about this woman? Does she look familiar? This is Clara Barton. She brought the Red Cross to America. Clara Barton was born in North Oxford, Massachusetts. In her early years, she became a school teacher during a time when teachers were mostly men. In 1862, during the Civil War, Clara decided that she wanted to help out in any way she could. She saw the need for medical attention for the soldiers, so she decided to serve as an independent nurse. This is how she got her nickname, Angel of the Battlefield. In 1869, she traveled to Geneva, Switzerland. During her trip, she was introduced to the Red Cross and Henri's book, A Memory of Solferino, which called for the formation of national societies to provide relief voluntarily on a neutral basis. She was inspired by Henri Dunant's work, and she founded the American Red Cross in 1881. During the American Civil War, Clara and many other nurses cared for military men and tried to connect them with their families. In 1884, the American Red Cross proposed an amendment to the Geneva Treaty, calling for expansion of Red Cross relief to include victims of natural disasters. In 1905, a congressional charter was created by the U.S. government in response to Clara's efforts. The charter mandates that the members of the American Red Cross act as second responders to disaster victims. The charter is still effective today. Now, over 130 years later, the American Red Cross has 5 lines of service that help us reach our mission and provide opportunities for you to be involved. Here are the 5 areas the Red Cross works in today: training services, biomedical or blood services, disaster services, services to the armed forces, and international services. Training Services is the prime provider of education on first aid, CPR, AED, and water safety. For more than 90 years, the American Red Cross has helped people learn how to keep their families and themselves safe as part of the organization's mission of emergency prevention and preparedness. As a volunteer with Training Services, you can get trained to become a community preparedness instructor and deliver presentations to younger students in your local community. You could also get trained to become a babysitting instructor and CPR, first aid, or an AED course instructor. Take a look at these numbers here. These are the services provided by Training Services nationally last year in 2018. The Red Cross is one of the nation's largest blood collection organizations. As I mentioned before, the Red Cross collects about 40% of the nation's blood supply. Blood donors play an important role in today's healthcare system. Many life-saving medical treatments and procedures involve blood transfusions. That wouldn't be possible without a safe and reliable blood supply from our donors. Each pint of blood a person donates can save up to 3 lives. Volunteers can help out with blood services by donating blood, by hosting a blood drive at your school or your community, by making thank you cards for blood donors to be given out in an upcoming blood drive, or volunteering to assist at a blood drive as a greeter or escort or to serve refreshments. Look at these numbers to see what our blood services efforts in 2018 were nationally. Preparing for, responding to, and recovering from disasters is another huge aspect of what we do at the American Red Cross. We respond to more than 70,000 disasters each year, including house fires or apartment fires, hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, tornadoes, hazardous material spills, transportation accidents, mass casualties, explosions, and other natural and man-made disasters. As a volunteer with disaster services, there are so many things you can do. This barely just scratches the surface, but I'd like to mention a few. You could get trained as a disaster responder and join a disaster action team. We also call that DAT. That's our team of volunteers who respond to local disasters such as home fires. They show up on scene and make sure that our clients are taken care of and have a path forward for recovery. You could also help with administrative functions. You could help us clean and maintain our emergency response vehicles, or our ERVs. You could offer translator services in the event of a disaster. You could help with handing out supplies in a disaster zone, or following up with clients after they've been affected by a disaster to ensure that their recovery is going smoothly. Look at these numbers to see what our responses were in 2018 across the nation. Again, we had a very busy disaster year, and it's incredible what work was done during 2018. Did you know that the Red Cross supports our military members, veterans, and their families before, during, and after deployments? We do things like provide emergency communication services that link members of the military with their loved ones back home during an emergency. We also assist the military, veterans, and their families with community services, and we offer workshops and support services to help them cope with deployments. During the holidays, the Red Cross coordinates the Holiday Mail for Heroes campaign, where people send hundreds of thousands of holiday cards to military members and veterans. This is a great way to encourage and support those serving our country in a meaningful way. As a volunteer in this line of service, you could do things like volunteer at a local VA, acting as a greeter, working in a clinic, or assisting parents getting to appointments. You could work with outreach services to help familiarize military members and their families with the services that we provide to them. And you could write thank you cards for holiday mail for heroes. Take a look at these numbers to see the work that our Service of the Armed Forces Division did across the United States last year. International services helps vulnerable people and communities around the world prepare for, respond to, and recover from natural disasters, humanitarian crises, and health emergencies through mobilizing the power of the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement. Across the United States, American Red Cross chapters help both youth and adults understand international humanitarian law. International humanitarian law, or IHL, is a body of law that seeks to limit the effects of armed conflict by protecting those who are not or are no longer taking part in hostilities, and by restricting the means and methods of warfare. These rules of war strike a balance between military necessity on the one hand and the preservation of human dignity and protection of vulnerable populations on the other. The four Geneva Conventions of 1949 and their additional protocols of 1977 are at the core of IHL. All nations have adopted the Geneva Conventions. The United States, as a state party to the Geneva Conventions, has an obligation to teach IHL to its armed forces and to the civilian population. The American Red Cross supports this mission by educating the American public. As a volunteer with international services, you could help us share the message of international humanitarian law with our action campaign. You could help us raise funds for the Measles and Rubella Initiative to help provide vaccinations to children around the world. You could also take part in our Restoring Family Links program, which reconnects families that have been separated by war or natural disaster. These numbers show you the services that were provided during 2018 by international services. No matter what line of service you decide to volunteer with, or even one of our support services, like communications, volunteer services, fundraising, or operations, we can't express enough the impact that you will make in the lives of others. Here's how the work our volunteers do impacts lives every day. Every 60 seconds, 63 people are assisted by the American Red Cross in some way. 390,000 times a day, a child receives measles vaccination from the Red Cross and their partners. 30,000 times a day, a person receives life-saving Red Cross health, safety, and preparedness training. 389 times a day, we provide emergency assistance to military members and their family. Your work reaches people down the street, across the country, and around the world. There are more than 260 local chapters in the United States, with more than 350,000 volunteers volunteering for the American Red Cross. Again, that's more than 95% of our total workforce. These volunteers worked with global partners to help nearly 174 million people across the globe who were affected by crises in 85 countries in 2018. But let's look more locally and talk about our Massachusetts region. As a region, we were chartered in 1905. Our headquarters is located in Medford, and we have chapter offices in Boston, Lawrence, Peabody, Worcester, Springfield, and Hyannis. As a regional territory, we have 56 cities and 295 towns that we serve. That's more than 6.8 million people. We also are part of the New England Blood region. They're headquartered in Dedham. Here's a map of our Massachusetts region. You see it's broken up into 5 chapters. In green, we have Western Mass. Pink is Central Massachusetts. Orange is Northeast Mass. Yellow is the Mass Bay chapter. And blue is Cape, the Islands, and Southeast Massachusetts. The Massachusetts region is part of the Northeast Division, which you see on this map in orange. There are 7 divisions that make up the National American Red Cross. Now let's take a look at Volunteer Connection. This is a great resource for you as a volunteer with the American Red Cross. Volunteer Connection is a single organization-wide volunteer management system that we use to engage, match, train, and deploy volunteers to help us respond to the community needs and deliver the Red Cross mission. You already have an account with Volunteer Connection as a Red Cross volunteer. This is how you created your application. You can sign into Volunteer Connection by accessing volunteerconnection.redcross.org signing in with your username, which is your email address associated with your account, and the password you established when you created your volunteer application. If you ever have trouble accessing your Volunteer Connection account, feel free to reach out to your volunteer services team. There's some good contact information for you at the end of this presentation. One of the tabs you'll find in Volunteer Connection says My Profile. You can use this tab to update contact information, establish privacy settings and preferences, change your login information, record any life experience, and monitor your training, positions, and hours served. The My Chapter tab will show you things that are specific to the Red Cross of Massachusetts. These are things like forms, job tools, or quick links to good information. Clicking on My Shifts will take you to various calendars where you can sign up for things to jump in on, like classes, shifts, or meetings. Once you're in a calendar, you can click on an event to learn more about it or to sign up for it. Another important feature of Volunteer Connection is the ability to log your volunteer hours. This is so important for us to have you do, and we'd like to show you how to do it. It's important because it's a great way for us to quantify the work that you do as a volunteer and take that knowledge out into the community and say, here's the impact that our volunteers are making in a tangible way. To log your hours, look on your homepage for that bright red button that says Submit Your Hours right down there in the right-hand corner. When you click on that Submit Your Hours button, it will take you to this page where you can tell us the date and the number of hours that you volunteered. That number of hours is going to be a whole number, but you can put 15-minute increments over there to the right on that drop-down. We ask that you enter your hours by the 7th of every month so that we can approve them by the 9th. After you enter the number of hours, you can tell us what you were doing when you were volunteering using the activity name field. This is where you'll briefly describe the activity you completed. This might be something like volunteering at the food pantry or responding to a fire call. The hours type dropdown has 3 options underneath. The first is worked. This is any hours you spent completing an activity for the Red Cross. If you were volunteering for 3 hours, you were actively doing something for those 3 hours. This includes any classes or meetings you may attend, and also includes travel time. Don't forget to include that in there too. On-call means hours that you agreed to sign up for, to be on call for a specific period of time. General availability means you were around, you're available, but you're not necessarily signing up for an on-call shift. We encourage you to focus really on worked and on-call, not general availability. The third dropdown you see there is the position dropdown, where you can tell us the volunteer position, the volunteer role that most closely matches the activity that you were doing. If you were serving at the food pantry, your position would be food pantry volunteer. If you were responding to a fire call, you would be doing that as a disaster action team member. If you don't see a position that aligns with the activity that you were entering, go ahead and reach out to your volunteer services team. That probably just means we need to assign a new role to you to accurately reflect what you're working on as a volunteer. Be sure to click Submit Hours, and once you do, that will go into a pending status, and an administrator will approve those hours. Sometimes if you sign up for a shift, as we saw in the My Shifts tab, those hours are automatically logged for you. So it may be the case that you might have hours rejected, but only because they are already counted in another way. You can also use Volunteer Connection to access some other resources that are available to you. If you look in the upper right-hand corner of your homepage in Volunteer Connection, you'll see 3 links. The first is Connect to Edge. Edge is our training platform. If you click on that, it will take you to a wonderful website where you can take self-guided trainings, or if you have specific trainings that you're supposed to take for your role, that's where you can find those as well. The second link is the IT Service Desk, where you can submit requests for help with IT issues. The third link is to connect to the Exchange. The Exchange is our internal knowledge database. It's a great intranet website for us where we can find standardized documents nationally, such as talking points, job descriptions, job tools, organization standards, whatever it might be. Feel free to click on that and explore. We hope that we've answered a lot of the questions you might have as a brand new volunteer with the Red Cross. But if not, feel free to reach out to us. Your volunteer services team is here to support you. If you have general questions about volunteering, feel free to reach out to mavolunteers@redcross.org. Or if you have specific questions to Volunteer Connection, you can reach out to mavcteam@redcross.org. We are so excited to have you on board at the Red Cross of Massachusetts. Thank you so much for your interest in volunteering, and we truly hope you enjoy your experience with us.